Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, and we are live. And as I put out in the description and the tweet, never know who's going to show up. It's great to see Steve Gosney back. Occasionally he can slip in, but the guy's really super busy all the time. But you're a good guy to have today, Steve, because Epstein files, your former attorney general, current attorney general to the United States are all in the news. So I'm sure you might have some thoughts on that. Good to see you, Sean.
Absolutely. No, that's going to be fun. We'll talk about that for sure.
And Ian, I don't know if you've been following our Epstein files debacle and whatnot down here.
I'm surprised anyone was surprised by that, honestly. That seemed like a BS promise from the beginning. So, yes.
Yeah, there's some issues, and I don't want to dive in just yet because I want to make sure some other people roll in, Nate and everybody else. I guess Nate was in multiple X spaces yesterday, firing it up with a bunch of people. And I think he said the Krasensteins are following him now, which is just like,
it's confirmed.
Congratulations.
You're confirmed. Yes.
Yeah. Now, bring your worst, everybody. Bring your worst. So, let me see. I put out a post yesterday, sharing the news about Gene Hackman, and got it never ending replies of what an idiot I am and everything else. But I said, how could this not be suspicious, essentially? But people are like, it's carbon monoxide dummy, it's carbon monoxide dummy, it's carbon monoxide dummy.
Doesn't sound like it.
It's probably carbon monoxide.
It may be, but guess what? It has been changed to suspicious.
We don't know yet. It's too early.
The basis for suspicious is basically just there are some more questions. We need to do some more investigation.
Right.
But like the whole thing about like, oh, it's not carbon monoxide because they saw no signs of it. You often see no signs of it until you do the autopsy, which they haven't done yet. So
which is true. But now keep in mind that she was found in the bathroom by the sink. Now, if they're laying in bed and peacefully gone, whatever, no problem. That's kind of a typical thing. Go to sleep, you don't wake up, and the dog factor is in that as well. But there's living dogs. One dead dog. She was found falling down with pills all over the place, and he was found in another area, the mud room, kind of falling over. So that's a little different because he potentially could have been smelling something. I believe they do scent it here.
You wouldn't. No, they don't scent carbon monoxide because
natural
you don't
gas
get carbon monoxide.
Natural gas, sorry.
Yeah.
You don't get carbon monoxide pumped into your house the way you get natural gas pumped in. They found a heater that was there. I want to know what kind of heater that was, because if it's a propane heater, that's your carbon monoxide source. And with carbon monoxide, it's really common that you get people who sort of pass out in some unusual spot. And going to the bathroom to get pills doesn't surprise me, because one of the symptoms of carbon monoxide, as it builds up, is you can get a really killer headache. And so it could be that she was getting a really killer headache, went, man, this sucks, went into the bathroom to get something for the headache, got more carbon monoxide and passed out. So, I mean, none of this seems... There's stuff where it's like you absolutely want to do an investigation to answer these questions. But to me, there's nothing that just leaps out and says, yeah, this was a murder or something.
No. I don't know if it was that. I mean, there's the possibility she could have had a health incident herself, and then he could have fallen later. He was 95, and depending on who you ask, was not in great health himself.
Can we just, aside from the criminal law speculations, which are fun and entertaining, can we just acknowledge Gene Hackman as being one of the greats?
Oh, absolutely.
And especially, I will say, his portrayal of Lex Luthor and Superman was wonderful, and his performance in Unforgiven, to me, are
Unforgiven for sure. Yeah, but I mean, he goes back to Godfather, dude. French Connection. I mean, we're talking about a storied legacy. He got an Oscar for that basketball movie. I forgot the name. I apologize. Hoosiers. Yeah, he was tremendous in that. I mean, the guy was a legend. Bill Murray is funny. He was talking about because he was known as being a little cantankerous to work with as well. But Bill Murray was describing his time with the Royal Tenenbaums, and he was saying that he was watching Gene Hackman acting with this other actor and nailing it like every time, like 25 takes, and the other actor kept screwing up. And he was like, yeah, no wonder he probably wants to throttle everybody, because there's a certain point where
he's like, we could be done this in an afternoon.
right. Like, he's like, boom, 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 nailing, and the other guy. And I guess one take, Gene Hackman kind of got a little flat on, and the other actor actually got it right. And Bill Murray's like, oh God, I think it was going to kill him. But a total legendary actor. And no disrespect. I mean, 95 is not necessarily a, horrible run either. That's a pretty good long life.
It is. I didn't realize he was 95.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what about the other one? Michelle was it Trenchenbaum Berg or whatever?
Trachtenberg.
Yeah. Yeah. Harriet the Spy got a little too nosy, maybe.
Yeah, apparently. I think we're going to be talking about that later with Mark. He said it to me, and he was saying alcoholism. She had a liver transplant like within the last year. It looks like there may have been something there. I don't know. Mark probably has more sources. I haven't followed her really that much. I wasn't even familiar with the name. So, but missed. A lot of people liked her. She was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, other stuff. I think Nate said used to watch her all the time with your wife, right?
Gossip Girl. She was on Gossip Girl, and Euro Trip. I loved her in Euro Trip. I don't know if you guys watch Euro Trip, but that was
no.
Yeah, you watched it. It's a cult classic.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I guess
Scotty doesn't know.
She's the cautionary tale. That's why you don't make out with your brother.
That's true. Yeah. But Scotty doesn't know. If you guys don't know that song.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I don't know. Coincidentally, those were things that I never really watched. So it's like, okay. Cool. There's a lot of that. So, all right. So let's get into the meat of the subject. Nate, you're here too. Danny, great to see you. And Steve Gosney is with us. And as I introduced before you guys came on, Steve Gosney happens to be in Florida, and it's his former attorney general and current national attorney general who's involved in a debacle. I mean, the whole Epstein files release, the situation, in my opinion, is an absolute debacle. I do feel like the influencers may have been set up a little bit, though. So
I don't know. I think there's a lot of angles to this, because obviously there's a deep state that wants Trump to fail, sure. And they're going to consciously, I think, obstruct. Pam Bondi may have been misled about what had been released previously and what she was given, and that because the way I understand it is she was only, the things that were released were stuff that's already been released. So, and she may have been misled. That's possible. It may have been kind of a double down. Who knows? Trump likes to play on different levels. Maybe it was some sort of theatrical thing, but I don't think so. I kind of suspect that there was some misleadings going on, and then she's like, "What? You mean this isn't it?" And I think that heads will roll going backwards, but it's a delay tactic, and this is typical deep state obstruction. I will say that I've never been.
Steve, didn't check the work.
Yeah, can I ask you just a quick question, Steve? You are a criminal attorney just like I am. 250 victims, 17 years, multiple jurisdictions, tapes, everything. Mm-hmm. And somebody gives you 200 pages and you're supposed to be like, yeah, this is everything for the 200 pages of victims. that's like, and she's supposed to be like, oh, this is everything. And they're like, yeah, this is everything. Like, it doesn't pass the smell test. If she was misled, then she should resign because she's an idiot.
And I was going to
like let's just be honest, Steve.
I don't really, this is probably not the popular opinion, but I've never really been blown away by her as Attorney General in Florida. She's an insider.
Neither was the NRA. Sorry.
Well, she's one of the, the good old boys kind of group. I mean, she's an insider group, the Republican elites. And I haven't seen the world been burned on fire with her conservatism. It's like conservatism as convenience, as a lever to power. And that's what's popular in Florida. And, and because I remember when maybe this is my bias, because she was in charge of the opposition. So when I was doing criminal appeals in Florida, she ran the office that was my opponent, right, which was the state. And they had big staffing shortages. And my understanding is what they didn't, she wanted to personally approve everybody that came through there. And so all the resumes would go up the chain and go up to sit on, and they'd sit on her desk for months. So she wasn't really aggressive in hiring. It's kind of like, well, I don't know. It seems to me, you can kind of sit on your laurels and everything's good. And I'm a good old boy and I'm on the inside and I've got all the right political views and I'm pretty. And so therefore, so I haven't been blown away by competence or anything else. So this kind of thing doesn't really surprise me. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. That's the impression of sort of a lowly grunt ground worker lawyer. But from my perspective, from the ground, it wasn't like she was a populist, somebody coming from the ground up wanting to make change. But that's just my simple observation. I could be 100%, 80% or degrees off base, but there you go.
I think her memo itself exposed a lie, in my opinion. The letter that she released to Kash Patel, one significant line was, when you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. That was written yesterday, the memo talking about the day prior. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe they turned it to me. And then she's literally saying in that memo that she knew that they were slow walking the information from SDNY or whatever else is happening. So I have some trouble believing in her complete veracity. But Dani, you're shaking your head. So am I wrong?
I think it's all bullshit. It's all transparency theater. Because here's the thing. Yeah. I have been covering this case since I was in law school. My professor went after Alan Dershowitz, and he represented some of the victims in the Dershowitz case, and then ended up representing the victims that led to the arrest of Epstein in New York. And so I helped draft some of those motions. I helped work on some of that case law. And there is no way, okay, from start to finish, and we're talking after his sweetheart deal, there is no way any attorney in this United States who knows anything about this case can say, yeah, with any level of good conscience, 200 pages of semi-redacted papers and flight logs that were released in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. That's not even including the multiple defamation trials. We're talking at least 6 different defamation trials, all that included this testimony. And we're talking testimony in context to those flight logs by the pilot Daniel. So this shit's all out there. And it pisses me off because it really pisses me off when they're playing games and saying that Kash Patel somehow didn't know, because you're telling me that the guy who's all anti-deep state, either he's incompetent or he's ignorant or they're lying. Those are the 3 options. Either he's incompetent, ignorant, or lying, for him to pretend like he didn't know that the New York office had the vast majority of the video footage that came out of there. That was all recorded based on the testimony of both the victims and just based on the pictures that we have. We have pictures of boxes and boxes full of evidence coming out of New York. And those are CD-ROMs with the names of victims and the names of the alleged perpetrators on each one of those CD-ROMs. So either they're lying, they're incompetent, or they're ignorant. And I'm not okay with any of those, by the way. It pissed me off when Biden went down to the Virgin Islands to rescue the SEO of Chase Bank and all of the banks that the AG was prosecuting at the time, when she magically got fired while he was on vacation there for Christmas, just coincidentally. Nobody's asking any questions. Then they ended up settling with the SEC so that they wouldn't have to go into the discovery phase. These assholes were using their cell phones. They were using their Chase apps, their Chase banking app, to send money to Jeffrey Epstein. So it's not just that there's a client list. We have confirmed smoking gun lists. And the FBI, for what reason, I can't say. I can speculate, but the FBI has failed miserably, has determined not to pursue those cases and those charges. I'm sorry, I'm getting really red.
There's a long history that goes all the way back. You know who Epstein, who hired Jeffrey Epstein many, many years ago, his very important teaching job was Bill Barr's father.
Yeah.
I mean, the ties are really, really
Well,
insane as you dig into it. I think there's some Mueller ties in there. And then, of course, you've got the
Sure.
Comey ties with his daughter who was running the case.
she's still there.
And
too.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
she's
going to
still there.
say
She's
this,
just
and
answered the
it's
issue.
going to hit me because I love Donald Trump. Okay, don't get me wrong, I love our president. I love everything he's doing as president. Okay, but I'm going to say I think it's really odd that Alex Acosta got a job as HUD secretary under him. I think it's really weird the positions that people got after the Epstein cases. By the way,
Well-
Alex Acosta was the prosecutor who was in charge of the sweetheart deal in the first place, who turned the other way when there were at least 32 victims. And by the way, do you know how they caught him in the original case on those 32 victims? They literally the sheriff went and interviewed 3 or 4 girls, and then he ended up just pulling open the yearbook and calling family members of each one of those girls in that high school, and then went to the next middle school and the next high school and did the exact same thing. That's how they got their original list when he was originally prosecuted. By the way, after that prosecution and his sweetheart deal, he was then flown out to the Clintons for their daughter's wedding, which was we now know all the funding came from USAID for that wedding. So when we say that this shit goes deep, we're talking really deep. We are talking very deep. He had so many organizations, shell organizations, all throughout that were all based in the Virgin Islands that were going to be prosecuted. Boom, AG's gone. All of his co-defendants, like Jean Brunel, he magically sewer slided himself with 2 shots in the back. Okay. He's gone. Okay. All of the people who are connected to this case just suddenly are just being killeried left and right. And nobody's saying shit about the people who are still very much in power. I have questions. Donald Trump, prove me wrong. Prove to me that you are not involved heavily in the Epstein case by releasing this and being fully transparent and letting the cards fall where they will. I'm so done with this shit.
Can I one thing, because see some people in the chat are screaming, oh, this is just phase 1. Listen, if you watch what Pam Bondi has been saying over the past couple of weeks, she said, number one, she said, I have the whole thing on my desk. It's blah, 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 waiting to release it. I asked them, was it more pages? It was like, she actually did say 200 pages. She said like 150 pages. But I'm giving her 200 pages because 150 pages makes it even more worse. She said, I got 150 pages. It's everything. They said, it's everything. I didn't believe them. I said it was everything. They said everything. And then they binded that up, gave it to influencers and made everybody think and told them to hold it for 3 hours, right? There was an embargo on releasing the binder for 3 hours, right? Made us all think there was something real in there, right? Oh my God, they got it. You know, yes, lives in TikTok. And then when they released it, it was nothing except, matter of fact, people don't understand how bad this was. Some of the documents that they redacted were already out there unredacted. So it's like what are they doing? So that's why and all the lawyers here understand cases have tons of paperwork. And especially with this case over 17 years, multiple jurisdictions, to really sit there as the attorney general and swear and say, I thought, you know, they told me it was only 200 pages. I just thought with 200 pages. It's an obvious lie. It's not even close to being. It's an obvious lie. So you know, I didn't think people want to defend her and all that stuff, but it's an obvious lie, and she's now throwing it back to the FBI. But she knew that wasn't everything at the beginning. But you know, now she's taking a fall. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
And as defense counsel, like if I get that binder, I don't even have to open the binder to know that it's not everything. Like they hand me that binder, and I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, where is the rest of this? Because it's obvious that it's not enough. And it's one of those things of either they knew that it was a scam and they did it with all the big pomp and pageantry, or they're too stupid to be allowed near power. And you know, those are the options. So pick one.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think there's still an option if you've got somebody who's a figurehead type figure that looks good and knows how to backslap and say the right things to the right people, and then they delegate, and then they say, because to now make me look good, I'm going to do it. Now give it to me. Now here I'm going to present it, and they really are not on top of what
the too stupid to be in power option.
It's
just more words.
And here's the thing: like, there's ways to do that would have been far more credible Like, but the way they did this, it just, you know, Pam Bondi said they have till 8 o'clock this morning to give me everything. And I'm like, you know what happened? It's nothing happens o'clock. And it's been nothing happens o'clock.
What pisses me off
and
is
here's the
they're
thing,
ones
like,
who set
if
the
there's
standard. They're the ones who said, I'm giving it tomorrow for day one. Day one.
Yeah.
We heard it from Pam Bondi. We heard it from Kash Patel. We heard it from Donald Trump. Day one. Okay, well, so-and-so just got in. So that's day one. So-and-so just got in. That's day one. Okay.
I don't
We'll
think Trump
restart
ever
the clock.
said day
Sorry,
one.
I interrupted you, Sean. I'm sorry.
No, other
I
people
don't want to
did.
push
Other
back.
people
I don't
said
think
day
he
one.
said day one. He never said day one on that because
other
it's pretty explicit.
Other people had catch that. Other people had kind of said that. And even then, if you're working on it, just tell us you're working on it. But this idea, unless, like, you know, like I know people are saying, like, oh, well, the SDNY is tortured files or the FBI is tortured files. That if that's the case, I want to see those people getting hauled out in irons. That ain't going to happen.
It's illegal to torch files.
Yeah.
Like, even at the local DA level.
Like,
if
you know what? Like, if
they
they really. Yeah, and if somebody from the SDNY, like, you know, Maureen Comey's like, oh, look, I thought I was putting him in the high-speed scanner. It turned out it was a shredder. Whoops. Like, and then the bigger issue, though, is all the, like, you know, Live to TikTok, Rogan Hanley, just the cope lords. Like, Rogan Hanley, like a 20-minute thing of, like, oh, so we're going to go through this. It's like, just take, like, if I was there and they had given it to me, I'd have been like, are you guys freaking serious? I had to put it under I may have just left it on the table.
I think they were
oh, I
set up.
forgot it. I'll come back and get it tomorrow. I would have walked out the door past them while they're posing with them. I'd have been like, thanks for the MAGA hats. And then I just kept on walking.
Did you watch Cernovich talk about that earlier? I mean, because I thought that he really laid out a pretty good narrative of what he claims happened, you know, where you listen to it and you're like, does that make sense? Yes or no? Is it possible? Yes or no? And according to Cernovich, they were there for another meeting that had nothing to do with the Epstein files whatsoever. It was about new media and outreach with the White House. And that's why he was there. Poso was there. Others were there. But there's going to be other meetings too, because he said, I was surprised Tim Pool wasn't there, or, you know, some of these others. Yeah. But they're going to have a series of meetings, supposedly to reach out to new media. Okay, all that makes sense. They're doing the meeting. He said that they were not allowed to have their phones in the West Wing, which he thought was kind of BS. Well, why not? But apparently they were not allowed to have it. And then Bondi comes in and hands them these binders and says, okay, this is embargoed until 3 o'clock. So, you know, you've got these, but you can't talk about them. Blah, 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 blah. I'm releasing it. And when they walked out, everybody's taking pictures of them. Because the press was there, and he's like, oh shit, we're screwed because now we've got these binders. I can't talk to anybody until 3 o'clock because I'm under embargo. And he claimed, and unfortunately David can't be with us today, he's too busy, but one of the people he was DMing at the time was Viva Pride, and he literally said it multiple times. I'm DMing him saying, look, I've got this stuff, but there's not much here. Supposedly she said, don't overplay it. There's not a lot here. SDNY, slow walking it, whatever.
Can I push you right there? Don't overplay it. She literally overplayed it the night before.
Yeah,
I know.
Don't overplay it. Yeah, then don't give it out.
Well,
also, how would you not overplay it?
Social media grifters, because they did grift it. They were like, "Oh, well, we'll talk about it in a couple hours." Oh, I've got the book. They're holding it up. They're taking the pictures. Don't give me that shit. No, each and every single one of them, I unfollowed immediately. F them, especially Cernovich. You know, he was one of the people who had one of these defamation lawsuits with Alan Dershowitz against some of the victims, is my understanding. I'll have to go back and double check that case. But he was an intervener in one of those cases. I don't trust any of them. I don't care. You either upload the files or you're full of shit. Once you get that in your hand, you go home, you upload the files, you say, it's a big nothing burger, everybody. Yeah. That should have been their first thing. They should have walked out instead of sitting there and doing their little, what the hell was that? This I'm Iron Man pose. Like, screw you, dude. I'm sorry. I would feel bad for them, but I don't. I really don't.
They were standing there holding that like they had Hitler's smoking jacket. Like, look what I got.
The only way to not... overplay that is if they just walked into the bathroom with it and then filmed themselves wiping. Like, that's the only way to not overplay that particular release. So, like, don't overplay it. How?
You post, you just
guys
make a
are
quick post. Hey guys,
cold-blooded, boy.
I'm gonna upload everything, but it's all shit. Just so you know, this is all pre-released.
I mean,
sorry.
But understand this though, and this is where I'm going to defend them. You go into this place, you're not expecting this. They give you a binder saying, "Here's the Epstein documents." You get 200 something pages. It's not like you can just look at it right there and verify if there's anything new in there, right? And you're trusting because she's built it up. We're dropping it tomorrow, and now we're giving it to you. If I'd have got that binder, I'd have been like, "Yeah, we got the info. Let's check it out." I think when they opened the issue is that they were set up by the administration because if there was something good in that document, then we wouldn't be talking about this. But the fact that it was all nothing in there, they were essentially just holding up props.
They were holding Rivera.
Yeah, they were just holding up props and looking like fools. And that was the administration that set them up. So that's where
I think Bondi did set them up. I mean, we can find out.
Yeah, but these guys are supposed to be somewhat savvy a little bit. And if they don't realize it's like, and I get it. Trump has done a lot of things. I've been thrilled with a lot of things he's done. But my default is nothing ever happens. And that's usually the case. And, you know, like, don't bother releasing things to me. Like, if Pam Bondi had it, open up a site for the government and plaster it all up there. If you've got it, just dump it. And then, you know what? Maybe these people can't be prosecuted, but then we all know who did what, and things, you know, things tend to sort themselves out if people find out what somebody's been doing.
But that's what we've been arguing for a while. Like, for example, we've got Anna Paulina Luna, who's trying to inject herself between the JFK files and Epstein and everything else. She was the one screaming at Bondi, "You haven't given me." She's making me crazy. And the JFK files, there is literally an JFK Assassinations Archive site. It's out there. It is a government site. Just publish the files on the site. Boom, done. And then you can have all the House hearings you want. You can do anything you want. We all go look at them. All the researchers can look at them. Congress can look at them. Everybody can look at them all at the same time. That's the basic transparency. All you need is a press release. You could say, "Hey, files posted at 3:00 today. Here you go. Go fetch." But these games are awful.
And the idea that Pam Bondi had to give some and said there's an embargo on it. You're the goddamn government. Like, drop it when you're dropped. Like, that alone, I'm like, I'm going to give you, like, am I now being read in? Do I have a security clearance? No, then I'm going to go drop this. Oh, well, don't do it now. It's like, oh, because that's a turd.
Can I ask you guys a question? Is there any reason to continue to redact the JFK files? We're now 30 years, or 60 years out. We're past the classification stages where it's now to the point that the president has to renew his classification once every, 3 years or something? So at what point do we legally and also culturally, this is a question for everybody, legally and culturally, at what point do we say release all of the files? What I'm missing the compelling state interest to keep them.
Well, technically, that was said in 1992 after the JFK film. That was the JFK Assassinations Act. You know, that you will release all these documents, blah blah blah, because they've been sitting on them for a while. And by the way, Congress with the assassination review in the late 70s kicked it to the future till 2035. So they've been wanting to hide this for a long time. There are some problems in there. Mark's theory is that a lot of the evidence is actually already out there. He feels like there's certain things like involving other countries and things that we did, like to strong arm Mexico into torturing essentially witnesses and things like that look bad. There's a couple people still alive. I mean, Clint Hill just died this week. He was an agent on there. He just died. Ruth Payne is still alive. Here's an interesting factoid for you. Did you know that Ruth Payne and Lee Harvey Oswald's tax records are classified and sealed?
I see. That's
why would you do that? Oh my God. Yeah. Well, Lee Harvey Oswald has been dead now for 61 years. And we're still, why can't we see his taxes? Maybe because it says the employer. Could that be it?
From what I've been seeing now, especially with JFK and a lot of these things, you get into the sources and methods argument, right? There are still sources and methods that we want to keep quiet so people don't understand what we're doing. And I think that's one thing where, like, a couple of people in the chat were saying too about the Epstein files, is that Epstein, obviously this was a blackmail ring too. You got all these high profile people and this. So if you are the government, do you really want to release these names? Because then as soon as the names are released, then you essentially remove all that blackmail material. Now you can have these people
reason
dance.
that it should be released.
Shouldn't,
By the way,
yeah.
somebody who's corrected me in the chat, Robert Bryant, I'm talking about the House Committee select assassinations in the late 70s.
Because here's what bothers me about it with both cases. These are real people, right? Like, these are real victims in these cases. And if the U.S. government is abusing victims, particularly U.S. citizens and presidents, do we even have a representative government at that point? And that's my concern. Does the government even represent the will of the people if the people are the victims of the government consistently on a large scale, in an intelligence scale, and in a legal sense? I just have deep concerns about the fact that our government continues to hide the truth from its own people. That's our information.
We know that. I mean,
I
MK
just-
Ultra. It's all. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much out there, record after record. I mean, I have a whole channel called Proven Conspiracies. Come check it out, people. And it literally is things that have been declassified over time. That, oh gosh, yes, we did do mind control on our own people.
Right.
Oh gosh, we did have Operation Mockingbird, which I
Right.
updated, and I think we
It's
had
still
social
active.
media.
Yeah.
Social media Mockingbird with the Twitter files, and Zuckerberg quite literally saying, "Oh yeah, the Biden Justice Department, yeah, they're telling us what to do." Oh yeah, it was bad.
Putting out open ads to hire YouTubers in our agency, saying, "Hey, if you're an influencer, you want a job here, we're hiring." So I don't know. This whole thing.
Are they paying well?
Yeah, I know.
Apparently, well, the way it works at the CIA is you get paid whatever you get paid, and then you get paid a salary from the CIA, and then you get bonuses from the CIA, but most of that income actually goes back to the CIA, is my understanding.
Do I keep my super chats?
So, because we have agents, in commercial realms everywhere, all over the world, working in large law firms, working in large banking industries, marketing firms, right? Project Mockingbird and such. So it's just sad to see. That was my question to everybody, is whether or not there's any legal justification, because the way I see it is the answer is no.
No,
I do want to ask the panel a question. Do you guys ever think the Epstein files will actually be released, or do you think it's just going to continue to go on?
No. If JFK is any indication, the answer is no. And
I
it's
think it'll
just
be like
heartbreaking.
JFK. I think it'll be just trickling out like a 1,000 cuts, and 50 years from now, it'll be like, oh, here's a couple more files.
It's too bad we don't have a free press, because a free press might be interested in such a CIA undercover operation to blackmail large parts of the government. Seems like that might be a good topic for somebody like a Woodward and Bernstein of the modern era to dig into.
Except for Woodward and Bernstein,
if we had a free
were
press,
deep
but we
state
find out
actors.
the free
Yeah,
press
they were
was,
glowies themselves.
the free press was being bought off by USAID too.
Woodward was head glowy himself. He worked directly for Haig. So it is really sad when you look at that. And Haig, in our theory, was actually deep throat. Even though Mark Felt came out and said, "Oh, I'm deep throat," our theory is it was actually Alexander Haig.
I'm just saying, people are criticizing the analogy of Woodward and Bernstein, but that is the heroes that the leftist news media likes to hold up as they're seekers of the truth, and they're unveiling, the Pentagon Papers, and they're doing this good work.
Well, the Pentagon Papers is a great example too. We had a guy called Edward Snowden that they want to say is a traitor and should never come back, and it's a perfect parallel. Edward Snowden and Pentagon Papers. Dan, I forgot his name.
WikiLeaks.
Well, Snowden wasn't WikiLeaks, but no, the Pentagon Papers. He died in the past year or so. He's a hero of the left.
Oh,
Daniel Ellsberg.
Ellsberg, thank you.
Ellsberg.
Yeah.
Daniel Ellsberg and Edward Snowden are like almost a great A/B
No, I'm
study.
just saying that
One
the
a hero,
purpose-
one is a villain.
The whole purpose of a free press is to reveal government corruption. But our press is now so ideologically poisoned and ideologically driven that they don't really, these huge stories about individual freedom in America are going overlooked because they don't serve the leftist agenda that the media props. And I just say it's a sad commentary. And the media itself was being bought out by being bought off by USAID. I think it was $40 million a year going to Politico, for example.
Well, also look at how many, Trump just pulled off, was it 51, the 51 people on the Hunter laptop took away their clearances, which essentially eliminates their career because they were going around to all the news stations. I mean, if you look at Brennan and all these creeps who show up everywhere on CNN, they're all consultants for the media. If you think about it.
No, I'm making the point about what the place of the press is, big picture within the society, and why the press is protected by the First Amendment, free speech and free press. The idea there is a free marketplace of ideas so that the truth will out through dialogue. But if our organs of the media, if the megaphone is being dominated by one side and silenced, you're going to find it's going to have tremendously tyrannical effects over the long term. So I think that the Trump election is somewhat of a backlash about that. But I'm not pointing to any particular case. I'm just saying that the ideal is what we should seek and strive for, and the ideal has been completely and utterly corrupted, and we're so far away from that the press is now a mechanism of tyranny.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing to disagree with there, Steve. I mean, really, I mean, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, the press has become the Joe Rogans. It even shows, like some of the people who hang out here, etc. I think Kurt on civil law really brought up a good point that press is nothing more than the mechanism, and it's really freedom of speech getting out there. So things are balancing out, and sadly, that meeting, circling all the way back again to the influencers at the White House, that was an encouraging sign when you have News Nation added to the pool and other people added to the pool to expand the press pool away from what was there. Those are all good signs. That's why it's such a
no. A good sign would have been if they just released it to the public when they're having a curated list.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the meeting itself, saying we're bringing more people into the press pool, bringing more people in, from the outside. We're expanding the reach. Now, I'm not talking about the files. That's what I'm saying. The files kind of screwed over something that looked like it might have been really good.
One thing I did want to ask the panel, and it's great that we have a whole bunch of lawyers here, is that me and Eric were having a disagreement on, so obviously AP, the Associated Press, was removed from the pool because they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And that's because they're a wire, they're international wires. So most international countries still call it the Gulf of Mexico. So that's why they haven't changed it. That's essentially what they were saying. But their response, or their lawsuit, essentially claims a First Amendment violation. That because the government doesn't want is demanding that they call this thing something, or they say this particular speech, and that they refuse to do it. They're not saying what the government wants them to say. They've been punished in this way. Essentially, same thing with Jim Acosta was saying. I thought that they have an argument. I thought this was a pretty decent argument. If it would have been better if Trump and his team they gave you no reason, right? They can say, well, hey, we just have too many people, and you've been here for all these years, so we're going to remove you out. But for them giving that as the reason, I do think that lends to giving you a cause of action, saying that, hey, the only reason why I'm being punished by the government is because I refuse to go along with this government speech. So that was the issue that me and Eric doesn't believe that the First Amendment argument is worthy of anything, and I think it gets you through a motion to dismiss. But I
think it's a solid one.
I thought that we had during the Obama administration a Supreme Court case to this effect, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall a case coming up to the Supreme Court specifically about the White House press pool and being excluded. And I don't recall the details, but I recall the Supreme Court coming down in favor of it being a privilege and not a right to be in the press pool, because it's not as though you won't get access to the information. The information is not being withheld from the press. It's just you're privileged to be there, and they can exclude and include whoever they want. So, and for any reason really, and especially if it's a reason of, hey, we've said that it's the Gulf of America. That's the American public. That is our position. If you're choosing an international position, we can have you removed as an international outlet. We're not interested in your whatever it is that you're doing here. So that was my understanding, is that that's a privilege to be there. Now
That becomes
Danny, but hold on. Just to point out the Jim Acosta case. Jim Acosta had the same thing happen. They went to court, and Jim Acosta won. They said yes. They said if you give a reason, and that reason happens to offend the Constitution, then they can't do it. So I think you're right. Generally, you can do it for any reason, but if you give a reason and that offends the Constitution, then you have to restore that privilege, and that's what they did with Jim Acosta. They restored that privilege because they said his rights were violated under the Constitution.
Well, here's the distinction that Nate's making, because I think that Trump is making a political point in that the AP has a style manual that says, well, you're not a female, you're a birthing person, and all these crazy things that come from the guide and come from the press. And this is the way the AP governs language, right? And so he's pushing back. He's like, well, what's wrong with my language? The distinction Nate's making, though, is in Trump's case, he is the government. And whereas in the AP's case, theoretically, this is a private actor. So there is a distinction there. My question, though, is why do these organizations, these legacy media organizations who have lost all credibility and are clearly propaganda arms, why do they have any right to any particular seat in a limited seating area, as opposed to, say, Ron Coleman or Eric Hunley or Dani Ahn, going to the White House, or Powerline Direct or Citizens Free Press, or any potential conservative outlet? Why don't we just get rid of the whole bunch of them and start over, and let's people who have some credibility, who are actually going to report, rather than these people that just have a position because they got a big corporate media gig.
And the thing is if they'd said, hey, listen, we're looking at different media organizations, we're going to do more with new media, there's huge explosion in coverage on YouTube, we want some YouTubers in there, AP, you're out, we're putting in Viva Frei gets a seat. Well, that would have been perfectly fine. That's when they say, we don't like your views, we don't like how you're reporting on this, we don't like what you said, and that now whether you get a seat is contingent. Because keep in mind, the rule that gets set up becomes the rule going forward. And so if you approve of, for instance, them saying, well, you didn't say that Trump is, whatever. Like if you're basically taking the principle that the Democrats could have during that said, if you don't describe Trump as a rapist, then you don't get a chair. Do you like that? To me, is not, they can't filter it based on viewpoint and based on this is the government's view that you have to parrot. If they'd said, like, we just want more new media, they'd be fine, but that's not where
I think they have made a step in that direction.
Well, they have done that. They've done both, actually.
Yeah,
but if they're misrepresenting the facts, I mean, legally speaking, it is a fact in the United States. We call it the Gulf of America. And if they're misreporting the facts, then don't you have the right to have them removed?
But it's a government compelled speech idea.
Yeah, it's government compelled speech.
Yeah, and I
get
get
the
what
issue.
Yeah, Nate's got a good point there, and it's the fact that because you are not using our language that we want you to use, then it's a very fine line. And First Amendment law is extremely complex area of constitutional law. However, I there is a point there, but the larger point that Trump's making a political point, not a legal point. He's making a point about, well, you want to rename everything. You want to rename Mount McKinley, Mount Denali, and we've got to go. Everybody marches along without saying a word, and you're a racist if you disagree with us. And then he wants to rename Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, and everybody's up in arms. Well, why this distinction? And it just shows you how lockstep the press is with anti-Trump leftism.
I just wish that the press was united in free speech, because if they're going to say that this is a violation of free speech, where was the uproar when Max Blumenthal got removed during that press conference? Do you guys recall that?
No, but there's they don't care about free speech. They want to shut down the speech of anybody who speaks against the party line and against the narrative.
Right. And I just feel like it's unfortunate that it only tends to go one way, because that removal happened, I think, January, like end of January this year, right before Trump took office, January 18th. He was removed during an Anthony Blinken press conference where they were talking about the Gaza-Israel situation. And because he had referred to it as a genocide, he was cut off multiple times and his mic was cut off. And then he started to yell over to get his question out. And they ultimately had him removed, saying that he was being disruptive, when in reality, they just didn't like the question.
Okay, but so is there not some line, if you're going to have this privileged status of being in the press room, is there not some line of conduct that, there is a point where mere words become conduct? But not only that, think of all the Antifa people who would love to be in that room, and who'd love to ask members of either party the most outrageous and disgusting and I mean, is decorum a complete non-issue? I mean, you're right, Danny. It is content based. There's no question that he didn't hit anyone, he didn't throw anything. But he was disgusting and obnoxious.
He was using inflammatory language, certainly. I mean, there were ways to have asked the same question.
But the fact is, there's lots of inflammatory language that's used by members of the press, and his hit one of the third rails of polite discourse. But it's the hard case that makes us have examine what are we trying to establish as the standards, and what does it mean to be in that press room?
Look up here on there's somebody made a comment, dog mom, or here up here, made a very good point. Here it is, dog foster mom 2018. They want to sue for freedom of speech. What about all those people who lost their job for not using the correct pronoun, picking and choosing to suit them? And see, this is the point that I think Trump is making a political point, and he is very, very right. And he's pointing out the hypocrisy, the double standards, the weaponization of the media against the people, and especially against conservatives. Whereas Nate's point legally is a fine line that most people aren't going to pick up on, but the political point Trump is absolutely correct on. So and I think he's going to ride that as far as he can, because the press isn't ever going to love him. So why not pound a spike pound the stake in the heart of the vampire as it sits in its coffin, right?
But we would all agree though. And if everything, because right now it seems like a lot of the arguments are about kind of what about in this particular situation, what about this situation? But I'm thinking in the AP situation specifically, the case is pretty cut and dry, right?
I don't think
we're not. Well, I'm saying cut and dry in terms of the facts. In terms of the facts, because there's time, place, and manner. Like, I'm thinking you guys are really talking about time, place, and manner situations when it comes to First Amendment. But I'm talking about in the APs and the factual matter of it is that you won't say what we want you to say, so we're going to remove this privilege. And
I don't know that I'm saying you have a point. There's an argument. I'm not conceding the field at all.
No, I understand. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the facts aren't in question. The facts are. This is what it is. And so my point is that I think with these facts, no matter which way you pull, if it's conservative or liberal, I just wouldn't be in favor of doing this, because I think when you do institute this privilege, when you say someone, like giving someone a driver's license, right? The state can say it's a privilege. The state can take it away from you whenever they want, but then they can't take it away from you because you're black. Right? They can't take it away from you because they don't like what you say. Like, there's certain reasons why they can't, even though it is a privilege. And I'm holding this press briefing piece in that same vein. If you institute it, then unfortunately the government can't remove it because of certain issues. And I think that's what's happening here. And I'm assuming the Associated Press will be victorious because they gave this pretty clear reason why they will not allow them to be in the press pool. Because remember, they're kicked off of Air Force One, everything. They just removed them from everything. So,
and they very well may win, and I hope that that's the case. To be clear, Nate, I hope that they win. I'm just saying it would be nice to have some consistency across the board, regardless of viewpoint.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't know if AP was kicked off everything.
They're not on Air Force One. They're not in the pool. They can't travel with the president.
Can I get a job? Can I get a ride on the Air Force One? I want to ride.
Can I ask you guys a question? What's the difference between having a press pool and just having an open online stream and having the press submit questions online and doing exactly what we do, where we highlight questions? I mean, why not just go there? I feel like that would save everybody a lot of time, money, and energy. And then the information's accessible to everyone.
Part of it is that when you've got a pool there, they get to ask a question, and the question is sort of unexpected and can be something that challenges the government. Whereas if they just get a list of like 20,000 questions, they're going to pick all the questions that are like, so isn't it true that you are the greatest government ever? And they'll be like, good question.
No, I mean, having
yes,
them live
absolutely we are.
Questions. No, I mean, having them live ask questions. So have maybe 20 users that are pre-approved online, and then they can shoot questions at whoever.
I'm just thinking about like, my chat, would I ever pull random users and just be like, let's come on live?
Not
and
random.
Ian.
Yeah, no.
Ian, there's a parallel here.
20 pre-approved, like a press pool, but just online.
Ian, there's a parallel here. What about Johnny Depp trial? You watched it both online and in person. Was it different?
The one thing that is online, you get a better view of, like, if you want to see Johnny Depp's face, watch it online, because I saw the back of his head. And there are people who are like, did you see what he was doing with his hands? And I'm like, no, I was like behind him and to the right. But the one thing is that you could see the jury. And so if you want to see which arguments are landing with the jury, and when the jury is going like, because there were points when the jury was literally just like, wanting to die. And it was typically when Amber's side was presenting something. You can't see that because that's covered off. If they actually had a camera on the jury, then there would have been no reason to go in person.
Well, as an observation here, I've been thinking about this, and Danny reminded me of it. I would say the best debate that I've ever seen was, I remember Fox did this experiment where they posted like 100 different questions on various topics. And then the people, the Fox News subscribers, voted which question they should ask. And the questions were great because they were the press kind of put up a bunch of different questions. They had a bunch of proposals, and then the people voted on which one they thought. So there was a screening element from the press, but there was also a public participation. I remember that debate was really, really good because of the intelligence, the lack of bias, the questions were good. And I've always wondered why they didn't keep that going and bring it back. And it kind of goes, it's sort of a balance of interest of what Danny had suggested.
Wisdom of crowds, in a way. And what you're describing is literally the wisdom of crowds.
Right.
Well, okay, that was a mic drop moment. Everybody's completely silent. Have we played the subject out? What else do we have going on? Ron, you've been quiet for a while. What do you have going on? Harmeet Dillon, didn't she go in for a confirmation? What's up with that?
So she had her confirmation hearing. She was she was one of 3 people who were being heard at the same time. So she didn't really get all that much questioning. The Democrats have taken to using these hearings as just opportunities to get on a soapbox.
Sure. And
state their political opinions. I mean, I think White House literally did not ask her a question. He just, there was one, apparently one of the Democrats' talking points was to ask whether, all 3 of them were asked, is there a view that it is appropriate, that it's constitutional for the administration to disobey a court order if they believe if the administration determines that it is unconstitutional.
I would say yes.
No.
That's Andrew Jackson, Trail of Tears, right? He said it's unconstitutional. Let's see them enforce their ruling because I'm going to enforce mine.
So the man Sauer, who was nominated for Solicitor General, which is interesting to me because Solicitor General, argues in front of the Supreme Court. I don't know if his voice is always like this, but he was having trouble speaking. He sounded kind of hoarse. He said, "Look, there is a view in among conservative." He actually said right wing, which I don't think was a great idea, but views in legal scholarship that, like, I think he cited Nate. He said, like Nate said, that an unconstitutional court order does not have to be followed. And that really hasn't. Let's face it; it's an unconventional opinion. But what they were all clearly prepared to say was that I've worked with President Trump for many years. I've known him, and I've never experienced him making such an order. So I consider that to be an entirely hypothetical question. And Harmeet was pressed on it, and she basically repeated that answer, which I guess were what she was coached to do. I think she could have done better. Frankly, I think there are better answers to that.
But does that give him something to hold on to, or does that give him the soundbite? I know that they talked about like Hegseth would never answer directly. Cash, all the ones who did get through, it was like they would never answer directly. Tulsi was under extreme fire because she would not say that Edward Snowden was a traitor, which is what they wanted to hear, and she just said over and over, he broke the law. He broke the law, and it was very clear. So a lot of it is an entrapment type of a scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's right. And I think the thinking by this point is that these are going to be pretty strict party line votes. I think there was some thinking that not all the votes, Harmeet is a relatively uncontroversial person, except ideologically. But ideologically, she's been a member of Trump world for quite some time. Sure. So if it's going to be party line all the way, then why give the Democrats anything? Why give them anything? Basically, give them an FU, and just press things along. There was another. Who else was it? Another one of these sleaze bags. From Padilla from California, the former Attorney General, was giving her a hard time over her election law advocacy.
But that's ridiculous though, because she's working for the guy. Like whenever I see that, I'm like, she's a lawyer. She's advocating for her client.
No, but it's not only that. The fact she sued Padilla, and she shoved it right down his throat. She said, "Oh no, you did cheat."
That's funny.
That's classic. Yeah, I gotta see that. That's great.
I'll send you guys the tweet. And he did he change his tune. I'm running out of time. These people are such terrible. They're just such garbage.
But can I talk on Ron's point there about?
That's great.
It's just fascinating how the sands shift depending which party is in power and which isn't, because there would be universal agreement by progressives that if, say, a soldier was given a legal order, that soldier needs to disobey that order, right? From an executive branch position, that they are not supposed to obey the president if he issues an illegal order, right? But when somebody in a black robe who's given this lifetime tenure and is some party hack who got approved and is put on the bench, all of a sudden they issue and their word is God.
Well, this guy who came down from Canada, like just before, the one who the one.
He's not talking about me, folks.
No,
I was thinking that too. I was like,
you're staying where you
right
belong. I'm talking about Viva Fry, of course.
Oh, there's a maniac.
I'm just saying that why is it that we hold, it's like, well, this black robe, one guy with a pen in some little jurisdiction, podunk jurisdiction in the country, it's a big country, who is never elected by anybody, can push around our elected president. At some point, there's a problem here, and there needs to be, and I think, a little civil disobedience. It's not just some existential thing about, well,
isn't that just the Constitution, though?
Yes, because there are 3 co-equal branches of government too.
Because your ox is getting gored, it's breaking the Constitution. Well, wait a second, there's a big problem. In fact, the U.S. Supreme Court has commented on it a number of times about these nationwide injunctions being issued by federal court judges, and one of these, and they need to pick the right one and test it, because this is a big constitutional problem that's testing our republic through these unelected judges driving policy that they weren't elected to do, and just because they're ideologically suspect.
Well, but let's play this clip, because I want to respond to Steve.
Okay.
When we had the opportunity to meet in your office yesterday, I gave you one example of California's failure to abide by the NVRA and make its voter rolls clean, and that is 1 million voters, quote unquote, in Los Angeles County alone, which the County of Los Angeles agreed in a consent decree.
So I'm going to cut you off because my time is limited. My recollection is the county agreed to constitutional practices in maintaining voter rolls. All the lawsuits were unsuccessful.
Well, that's not true. Factually, Senator, actually have won several lawsuits against California at the United States Supreme Court during the time that you were when we had the
kicking his behind.
I love it when they do that whole, I'm out of time. It's like they're grabbing every second of time they can any other time, but then, I'm almost out of time. Oh, you hate it when that happens.
That was great.
Go ahead, Nate. You want to?
Oh, yeah. And just so everybody understands, in academic circles, this has been an issue ever since Marbury v. Madison. Because Marbury v. Madison is where you get judicial review, where the judges say, we get to determine what the law is. And literally, that's the way it's written in Marbury versus Madison. And that was one of the greatest, most conservatives and people who are originalists believe that was an overreach of the court. But that's what we live with today. And that
was the court giving itself power.
Yes, of course. It was a huge power grab. I'm agreeing with you. But that's always been a contention now, because in the academic world, what makes the court the only branch of government to be able to determine if something is constitutional or not? It was a self-endowed power. So, as I mentioned, Andrew Jackson's Trail of Tears, when the Supreme Court ruled for the Native Americans, and then they were moved anyway because the executive said, "Well, I'm interpreting it differently." So in that particular case, let's say if that was to happen, where the Supreme Court says X, the executive says we don't care, the only recourse you would have is that the executive would have to be impeached by Congress. And when it came to Andrew Jackson, he had all the support in Congress. So essentially that ruling was made null and void because there was no enforcement of that ruling. So I do understand it, and I do believe Steve's position is more correct, where the court kind of has just gobbled up this power unfettered and no one has challenged it. And I think at this particular time, Trump is challenging that authority. Well, if you're saying it's left, I'm saying it's right. We're both co-equal branches of government. Who's right? What gives you that extra authority? And I think the Constitution, and people are going to say the Constitution, but then, again, it's always been an open question.
Well, and the point here is what these judges are saying is that the president doesn't have power over his own executive branch. He doesn't have the power over his treasury. He doesn't have the power. The president himself, he is the executive branch. The entire executive branch works for Trump. Trump can do anything within his domain of power. So these people work for him. And that you're saying he can't go in and look at his own files in his own Treasury Department?
It's ridiculous.
But that's the Morrison. Isn't that the Morrison decision? That's Morrison. The council. That's Morrison. You just literally just gave Morrison.
Well, no, Nate. We're getting to the point though where these judges are cooking themselves with the way they're so overreactive. It got to the point where the judge said, you can't even evacuate a USAID employee. And it was like, okay, wait, if they want to leave, I have to let them leave. And then there was the judge in Rhode Island, and Trump's like, okay, fine. Well, hey, I guess we can't stop this fraud. And the judge's like, okay, wait, if it really is fraud, you can stop it. you know, and then they came to the judge, said, well, can we do this? Can we do this? And the judge said, don't ask me about everything. So it's not that you're like the court shouldn't have any authority here, but the courts are clearly acting as unhinged lunatics. Like it's like if I showed up today with a judge had a piece of paper saying I can take all your crap. You're like, well, it's on a piece of paper. I mean, like that's almost as scary as saying we had a vote. Therefore, like I understand the idea. We want to adhere to the rule of law, but when you're having just insanity from a bench somewhere, at some point you have to say no, we're not doing that.
I hate the fact that you're making me defend some of these rulings, but I'm going to do it because I read them and I thought it was fascinating.
You don't have to. The water's warm over here.
Well, because I read them and I want to be, and I like to be honest with the, just my opinion on these facts. But like, for instance, there was one with the federal employees recently about their collective bargaining agreement, right? They were like, you can't just fire us because we've collectively bargained and now we have these rights that we were collectively bargained.
Oh, I agree. They have rights.
So that in that particular piece, the judge ruled in favor of them because he's like, you do have this union and collectively bargain these particular things, so the government has to follow that. And it's the same thing with DACA. Right, the government, these people are illegals and they should be deported. But the government said we're going to agree if you come out of the shadows and you fill out this paperwork, we won't deport you. So when it went back to the courts, the court gave them that reliance. Right, we relied on what you said and we put ourselves in the back. So I think a lot of these are going to have to turn on those issues, which I think are proper for the court. Where if the government has given you this reliance piece, or if the government has made these promises to you, they have to uphold their end of the bargain.
And that's fine. You can sue and seek redress in court. But this idea of paralyzing the government, like these people running in, like a TRO is meant like your hair is on fire.
Yeah. I agree with the TROs. I agree with you.
And for a couple of these, then that's the thing, though. The court is going to nuke this stuff. And like they're overplaying their hand and it's going to blow back on them. But like, I bet we come out of this eventually with the Supreme Court saying, like, we disfavor TROs going forward, which hurts people who might need them in the future. But at some point, that's how these
already is the law.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, it's really, I know, but it's really like the Supreme Court's basically going to nuke the concept.
They've been hinting that they're going to take some action.
Yeah, well, Thomas
the problem is that when you have a judge that's not following the law, what do you do about it?
Well, no, and that's what I mean. At some point, you got to do something about this judge, and we can't have a million Hawaii judges.
But no Democrat's going to vote to remove a judge, and the only red course is impeachment. Now, I will say, here's a remedy that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, and that is the court itself, meaning the U.S. Supreme Court, could take action against these rogue judges as a threat to our republic under the good behavior part of the Constitution, because it's not just solely impeachment. The judiciary itself could enforce conduct rules. They could remove one of those judges just by saying you are not operating a good conduct, and they should do such. They should make a couple examples of these really on the edge rogue judges to shut down. That would really do a lot to shut down, because those lifetime appointments are sweet, and those judges, that would mean something to them.
Yeah, those lifetime appointments are going to.
Where's our honorable host? We're taking over the show.
I think Eric went. Oh, there he is.
I'm right here. Wow, somebody just said something. I'm blown away. Zelensky and Vance in a fight at the White House with Trump coming in. Have you guys seen this?
Like a physical fight?
No, I mean just some.
Sorry, I got way too excited.
No, it's quite remarkable. Hold on, let me pull it up, because Vance is calling him out to his face, Zelensky. And this is incredibly uncomfortable.
What was the argument? Vance saying, "No, I will not do cocaine with you."
No. Here you go.
No, I will not dance to single ladies.
In the destruction of your country.
Yes, you must do cocaine with me.
With respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
I don't have to
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
The crossed arms?
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent
can you pause?
destruction of your country.
This whole shtick of dressing up like you're a guy panhandling on the street corner, like wear a shirt and tie, brother. Wear a shirt with a collar.
He's dressing like a military. Like
yeah,
he's
I know, but he's
Yeah.
cosplaying. It looks like a bum. Put on a shirt. Put on a tie, brother. Come on.
Yeah, he's been doing this routine for
This
a
is
while.
fake.
I know. It's
He
just
is an
getting
actor.
old. He's just missing the Fidel hat.
I have a question. Does anyone think that anything that JD Vance just said was wrong?
No.
Okay, then there we go.
I do.
That's it.
It's
And we're all
it's
in agreement.
Somebody said they did. Hold on.
It's amazing to see
I don't even know.
and experience this level of transparent confrontation.
Yeah, it
In
gets
public.
better. It gets better. Hold on.
Even
Yeah.
you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't know
God
that.
bless. You
Don't-
will not
you
have
gotta-
a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve the
Ooh.
problem. Don't tell us what we're
Telling
gonna
you.
feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're
Look
going
at that
to feel.
expression.
You
We're
will-
going to feel very
you will
good.
feel influence.
We're going
We're gonna feel very good.
and very
You
strong.
will feel influence.
You're right now not in a
Man.
very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a good
Brown,
position.
I
You don't
was
have
in-
the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not playing
cards. But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't. Yeah,
very
you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What do you
You're
think about-
gambling with
what do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
Oh,
what you're
Yep.
doing is very
I'm telling you,
Get him,
this is, this is serious.
Get him.
disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
That's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you.
your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
I'm wearing
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
Did he say
A
I
lot
don't
of
respect you?
times.
Actually,
man, he's
Even
Can
today.
Can you
I've
rewind
never.
that?
He's
Now,
arguing. This
it
is
gets
a kid
better.
I don't even know
arguing.
when is this argument over?
Well, watch it. It's getting
Hold on,
better
I
here
wanna
because
hear what he
Vance is
said.
jumping in.
Did I just hear that?
I don't even know what this argument.
No, he's saying I respect you. He's
Nate,
Oh, I
Nate,
do
Nate can
respect you.
explain.
he said I.
Zelensky's rattling the can, and he's upset that we're not putting 20% on the tip thing.
Well, here Vance is now calling him out about October. Wow.
Lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
you said thank
Even
you.
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for
What-
the United States
what
of
you're speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to
Huh?
save your country.
There you go.
No, but
Like-
but he went to speak to Trump and he went to because he didn't know who was going to win. So I don't
Well,
know about that.
No, he
He goes
campaigned for
speak to
one.
both sides. Oh, he didn't.
campaigned.
Because I remember
Yeah,
he met
he-
Trump and they shook hands and they talked.
Yeah,
and they
he
were all
okay.
like,
He did. He did a
appreciative
lot
stuff.
more for Kamala. He was hoping Kamala was going to
maybe.
win and
Yeah,
just keep the
because-
tap
but-
running.
I if I was in his position, I would have do that. Because they were, Kamala
No,
was
I would've
running
been
on.
careful.
We're going to give them billions of dollars.
Well,
and
here's the
Trump was like,
problem,
we're
though.
going to hold off. So
He bought in the, he's because of the, he's already cope overloaded.
yeah,
That we're winning. We're 10 miles from Moscow. It's like
Zelensky had a peace deal. This is what everyone forgets. Zelensky had a peace deal, and he said no. He said no, 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 because he didn't want the Russians on the border. That was it. That was it. And he wanted to be a part of NATO. He had a deal in the bag. Okay. Russia was willing to go all the way back to Russia. They were like, you know what? That's fine. We can work something out. Let's work something out. They were ready to deal.
I don't.
I think
I'll
the
pull
only
up the
deal
initial,
deal I
hold on.
saw-
I'll pull up the
I don't
initial
think
deal
so.
and I'll
Yeah,
give
the
you
only-
some
the
names,
only
because
deal
when
I
you
saw
read through
was
it,
them-
you will be astonished.
And
at what he
who
threw
went
away.
and flew into
I didn't see that
Ukraine to
deal.
spike it? Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that Zelensky is a puppet in a lot of ways of the Biden administration, a proxy war with Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to be fair about it, he is in a really bad spot right now, and he's been
He sounds like a
used
scammer.
like crazy, and it's sick. I don't like seeing this go on. There's people who are dying while this is happening. But
yeah, I'm trying to, because I know the peace deal they recently came up with where they would take away like a third of the country and all that stuff. I don't know,
Yeah, that's the more
That-
recent one. I'm talking when
that's
the
a
war
crazy piece.
first
yeah.
broke out.
In March and April of 2022, there were negotiations in Istanbul.
Okay.
We had a deal that was already done. It was ready to go. And then Biden met with Zelensky and both of them said no deal.
Well, yeah. Well,
Boris
Boris
Johnson,
Johnson
yeah.
told him, if you
Yeah.
guys fight,
Yeah.
we'll give you money. And
This
they're
is
like,
this is some bullshit.
Oh.
I am so over
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I gotta
This
see that
needed to
deal.
end. This needed to end years ago, last year, 2 years ago. This is absurd. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be throwing any more money towards fighting the freaking Ruskies in Ukraine. I'm tired of it. I'm done.
Well,
Yeah, just let them,
here's the thing.
I'm with you guys. Just let them take over all of Europe, and who really cares, right?
Well, they're not going to be able to take over.
We'll live on our end of the thing. I don't know.
That's called the straw man.
I may be
here's
one
the
of
thing.
those few people who believe when someone invades another country and they take over, and they're taking over most of the places that happen to have the oil and natural gas reserves, and then it's just like. I'm all for a deal, but let's keep who started this war?
Let's keep in mind for a second why he's in the White House today. It's because he doesn't want to give up his lithium reserves to the U.S., even though we have been funneling so much money into Ukraine for the past, decade and a half? They effing owe us, okay? We, the United States, when we take out loans to fight our wars, we pay them back. Generally speaking, in one way or another, we pay them back. This is what they have to do. They don't want to pay the bill. And the lithium reserves are the least that they can do. It's the least that they could do. The next thing they could do is keep their damn mouth shut, stop asking for more, stop putting aggression onto the Russian people, stop saying, yeah, we're going to join NATO when you explicitly agreed not to join NATO decades ago. I'm sorry, but I'm over this. And then now the US isn't much better. We're putting aggression there. We're putting our assets there. So I'm not going to sit there and pretend like we're not a part of this. But am I pissed off? Yeah, I'm pissed off. And just so y'all know, I hate Putin. Okay, I hate Putin. His crackdowns on minority Christians pisses me off. His crackdowns on religious minorities pisses me off. There's a lot of reasons I freaking hate Putin, but this ain't one of them. This is one of them where I just go, yeah, this makes sense. In realpolitik, he's going to do what he has to do to defend his borders, and it is a defensive move.
But I think I'm just going to say I think that's all nonsense because you're right. He's defending his border with Ukraine, which is the longest border he had. But then he gives up the second largest border with Finland, who then joins NATO because he went into Ukraine. Oh, but I understand. We're not supposed to talk about the second largest border. We're only supposed to talk about the Ukrainian border. And then it just happens to be all the places that they're attacking has all the oil and natural gas reserves. I don't want to. I think at a point in time, there's propaganda on both sides. Ukrainian propaganda is we're trying to do all this, and then you've got the Russian propaganda. But at the end of the day, if they wanted a deal, they would have a deal. And right now, with these mineral reserves, my argument is that Trump has. I think Trump's position is correct. They made that deal with the European Union to pay them back, and if you make that deal, then why not pay us back? Well, so that's where I believe Trump is correct. But all this stuff about who's fighting the war and this, I think Ukraine has a beef. They were invaded. Sure. It's something that and I think we can't just overlook and pretend that doesn't matter, right?
Well, I mean, it matters, but what do you, I guess, Nate, here's the thing I'll say. Yeah, did Russia invade Ukraine? Yes. Are Russia the big bads? Yes. Am I going to send the 1st Armored Division in to clear them out? No. So then that leaves us with the option of, well, what are you going to do? They're not going to leave. Nobody can make them leave.
That's it. It's realpolitik. And they had a deal where Russia was willing to go back at least to Donetsk. Prior to that, they were willing to go back to the border. They were willing to cede, but they had some conditions. And one of those conditions is no more biological labs along the border, no more trying to reach out and get into NATO, no more positioning, doing any military exercises across the or the Ukrainian border and into Russian airspace, because we were pushing it. To be fair, so was Russia. Okay. But regardless, that was their own. They didn't have many conditions. There weren't many. And then also to protect their own people within the Ukrainian border to a certain extent. There are some reasons to do that, politically speaking and ethnically speaking as well. Just speaking of that particular region, it makes sense why he would want to defend and protect his own people.
So why not do that for Finland too? Because all these conditions,
because Finland's not a threat. Finland's not pushing. There is a long history of pushing and aggression.
Finland's in NATO now. Finland had agreed. Finland, just like you said, hold on, let me just make it very clear. Yeah. Finland agreed not to join NATO. They agreed not to join NATO. Sure. And then they had all this stuff. There was even a little war. They even lost territory in World War II to the Russians. Then when they invaded Ukraine, Finland said, guess what? We're not going to be like Ukraine, because look at those idiots who agreed not to join NATO, and guess what? They're invaded anyway. So yeah, so the arguments that you're making would have been the same for Finland. This is
no,
just
it's
so
not
everybody
the
stands.
same though.
This is not food. This is not about
It's not the same. We
invasions and all
don't
this stuff.
have the
This is about
same.
oil and natural gas, and Russia's got it. And I
Sure.
just give it to them, and
Sure.
just let if the deal that's on the table now is we'll give you the oil, we'll give you the natural gas, just let us get into NATO, and that's the holdup right now. And I think that's a good deal. You let them go to NATO, you get all your oil, natural gas, you get all that.
No. Hell
We
no
don't
on NATO.
own Finland.
Hell no
I would
on
say
NATO.
do it.
Ukraine.
Finland's
Russia
in
knows
NATO.
this. That's
Finland, so-
why. There's a huge distinction between Finland and Ukraine. We own Ukraine. We have been directing Ukraine. We've been directing their politics for the last, 3 or 4 decades. We have controlled their government. So aggression from the Ukrainian government is very different than aggression from the Finnish government. When you're talking to the Finnish government, you know who you're talking to. You know what assets they have. Frankly, they don't have as many assets, to your point, right? When we're talking about biggest threat and biggest payoff, we're looking at Ukraine. And not only that, they don't have the regional ethnic background that they do in Ukraine. Ukraine has a lot of Russians who were moved in during the Soviet Union, who still exist along the border, who need protection from the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian government ain't this rainbow and sunshine bullshit that they've been trying to spew for the past 10 years. I'm not buying it because I remember the coups. I remember the overthrows. I remember Ukraine on fire. Okay. I grew up during that era and I won't forget it. Ukraine has and always will be a very corrupt government, unfortunately, to the Ukrainian people. And so if we want stability in the region as a global hegemon that I believe we are, I think the best course of action for the United States is to get the Ukraine to shut up, deal with Russia, and get Russia to back off and to cool the aggression as quickly as possible. And we had that opportunity. Zelensky tossed it. Why? Because Zelensky is getting payouts, big effing payouts. And that is all corruption. That's going to his own freaking personal piggy bank. So I'm sorry, but I just have no sympathy for this man. He's a fraudster, and it shows. You listen to that conversation with your eyes closed, it sounds like someone who's doing scam calls, like cold call scam calls. You didn't pay, I sent you the pay phone. You didn't pay, No, ma'am, don't hang up. Like it's the exact same spiel going, and I don't have patience.
I gotta say, I have a completely different take from most of the people here, and I'll just throw it out there for what it's worth. Number one is Putin. Let's not gloss and pretend that Putin is the defender of freedom in the West.
Oh, I'm not. I don't
Putin is a murderous dictator who is enslaving people and who has started the war.
The crocodile's eating
invaded this
right
country
now.
and put in both these countries. And I think first our interest as human beings is to stop the war, because we have two great countries, Ukraine and Russia, who are killing each other. Millions of people are dying on these front lines for really stupidity and ego and for dictatorship, Putin, and for whatever reasons. Now, I'll say, here's 2 other points I want to make. Number one is that I think that one of the problems we're dealing with is that Ukraine's corruption found its way into the United States, and he has burned a lot of credibility with the Republican side because of the corruption, because of the first Trump impeachment and all of that. So they're playing from behind they're behind, and they got to catch up. They've got to reestablish credibility with the party that's in power, because most of the people who are, it's becoming this partisan divide of whether you support Ukraine or not, when it's really an international thing. It shouldn't be, but because they interfered with our politics and because they played partisan games, a lot of their things. I have one more point, and that is that I think that the larger point that Trump is making is that this is a European problem, essentially. It is and they are piggybacking, the Europeans are piggybacking on the United States to fund this war that really they should be the primary funding. And they've got 1.3%, 1.4% GDP in defense for Germany and France. Why are they not spending to defend their own backyard? They're leaning on the United States to do that, and that really offends a lot of Americans. And so when we see spend some more money on Ukraine, it's like, wait a second, Europe, you need to step up first, and we'll come second. But they're playing this sucker Uncle Sam game that we are just tired of. And I think you're seeing Trump express that. So those are my three.
Can I point out, though, is that there are plenty of Republicans at the trough of this stupid thing, too. I mean, Lindsey Graham absolutely loves throwing money at Ukraine. So I'm not going to sit there and say that the Republicans are
a lot of it goes back in their pocket.
But that's corruption. I think there's a lot of corruption there that was revealed. And that's what people are offended by.
Steve, Europe cannot afford it. And when I say this, I mean they genuinely cannot arm themselves and have the capabilities to defend themselves against Russian aggression in the time frame that's necessary.
Wait a second. Germany it's not. We're spending over 3%.
You're making me defend Europe, okay? I'm just being honest with the situation it's in right now. There's no way Europe can do it. The best thing that we could do, I take it back. Rather than telling the Ukraine to shut up, I think Ukraine should be over in Greenland lobbying them to give us a deal. You give us Greenland, we'll defend Ukraine. Boom, bada bing, everybody wins. We get our protection, we get to protect our entire East Coast from Russian aggression, and we protect Europe from Russian aggression. You really care about stopping Putin? That's a quick win. So, yeah, I take that back.
Nobody's talking about sending armies to. We're talking about whether we fund them and give them military equipment, not sending the first ID or something. So
I'd send. Well, no, I don't want World War III.
I don't want World War III. We need to put it front and center in this debate, though, that both these countries are great countries and they're killing each other. It's like it's communal national suicide where they're locked in this death grip. They need an outside force to come in and shake them up, to lay down their arms, to stop the death of lots and lots of beautiful people on both sides. So let's not forget that that's what this war is really about. These dictators are in charge. To hell with them. I'm concerned about the people of Russia and the people of Ukraine.
We can agree with that. I mean, and there is a sunk cost fallacy angle too, where when do we say, oh no, the deal's not good enough? People are dying. And I think that's where you're going. It's kind of like Vietnam. That didn't work out according to plan, but eventually you had to just say, okay, stop. Okay, stop. And they've actually kind of fixed their problems, or a lot of them, over time. And ironically, capitalism won out there. But who knows?
But then you had the North Korea issue, Korea and North Korea. We spending billions of dollars in South Korea. I think a lot of these arguments can be made for these other places too. We don't forget we strategically have military and assets all over the world to stop these people from invading. We didn't have them in Ukraine, and you see what happened. So I would think if we're going to be this more isolationist country, I would say let's pull them back from Japan, pull them back from
I'm okay with
South
that.
Korea.
By the way, I agree with all that.
Let everything happen.
I don't want Ukraine and NATO. Right? I don't want Ukraine and NATO, and this is why. If they're in NATO and they're attacked, it's automatically we're in a world war. Automatic. And we know that there's problems there. Finland, you like to bring up. When was the last time Finland had a conflict?
World War II.
World War II.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're not really known troublemakers.
Who was it they had a war with?
No, I'm missing something. Hold on.
Yeah, but weakness.
They had more than one war with that person as well.
I'd say the weak countries are a antagonist. They bring in aggressive dictatorships to attack them. And the larger geopolitical interest, if you want to look at it from a kind of a big picture, is that obviously a lot of people that are supporting Ukraine are concerned about the precedent that might be set towards the Taiwan issue and other. So, and I don't think I don't think we should underestimate that interest. However, I will also say there's a matter of, what is the solution here? There's no perfect solution. And if we could provide for long-term stability to the border, because this border has been very debatable, right? If we could provide some long-term security for both these parties, that is the way out. You've got to provide security for Russia's interest, and we got to provide security for Ukrainian interests.
You know how we do that? We become an offensive empire, and we just take over shit. I'm over it. I'm there. Take over Gaza. Put up the Trump hotel. I'm all for it. At this point, that's where I'm at. And people who think that the Greenland deal is just, there's only glaciers there. You're an actual idiot. Like, there's so many benefits to taking Greenland in terms of geopolitics. It's not even funny. If we could have bought it before, we would have bought it then. It would have been a deal akin to
it's
taking
been negotiated. We've tried to buy it before.
We've tried to buy it before. It's right on. But I don't know. What's your take on that, Ron? Should we take Gaza?
No.
You're muted, Ron.
I don't understand what we should not take anything from the.
Yeah.
She's basically decided that the U.S. should go
The US should be
1940s Germany
Yeah.
and just start, taking what
I was
they
referring
want.
to Rome. Thank you, Runkle.
Just because I'm on this panel doesn't mean I agree with anything that's said. Is that fair?
I'm just going to note the Second Amendment was built for. Yeah.
Well, I would also say too. I think testing, because China, I think, is watching the Ukraine issue to seeing how far we would go, and if China then really goes into what Taiwan, I don't know if we do anything to stop them. Like what do we do?
Well,
do we?
What do we do, Nate? I mean, seriously, what do we do? Because
I don't think there's
there
anything
is
to do now.
A bottom line reality of China and the strength that they have or whatever. Oh, see you, Ron.
Ron,
Okay.
I don't think there's anything to do. I don't think
I'm
there's
sorry,
anything.
Ron.
We just let him take it over.
He said he's got a call. I don't think it was anything that was said.
Oh, okay, good.
So I guess
no.
I would say, Nate, there are differences though. Like we've actually been an ally of Taiwan since 1940. Like this is an actual ally. We've done a lot of things there. Yeah, China's watching Ukraine, and they're seeing NATO apparently can't barely scrounge up ammunition. They're having trouble with force deployment and readiness. So yeah, Ukraine was great. NATO gave away the store and now they can't rebuild. And it's going to be like a 30-year plan to rebuild the military. Like, we're learning, like nothing has done this to inspire. Like nobody's looking at NATO and trembles right now. So yes, Ukraine has caused a lot of issues and will cause more because guess what? Britain can't do anything. They're decommissioning half the Royal Navy at this point. Like, yes, the U.S. isn't the only country going to face them. Like, they're not worried about like, oh, those Danes, Denmark, oh, buddy,
Well,
or
Greenland
oh,
is
mighty
a good
Lithuania.
deal.
Like,
Canada was ridiculous. Greenland is a good deal. I mean, if we
Canada
could buy,
would be a net loss.
oh no, it's just nuts. I think that was just
No.
blather. But
We
Greenland,
love
if
Canada
we could
just
buy
fine.
Greenland, and they sell it, then I think that's fine. It's like buying Alaska. I don't see an issue with it. I think it'd be valuable.
I don't
the
understand
Canada
how we lost to
discussion
Panama
is
now
It's
still.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's a
silly.
major Trump own goal. It is absolutely like all the people saying Trump plays 4D chess. It's like, okay, great. You've just taken a country that was fairly, I mean, you could say, hey, we wanted more from the border, etc. But it's because of the sort of annexation talk, it's gotten Canada rallied in a big way against the US. And if he doesn't like Trudeau and the Liberal Party, he has been an absolute, like the Liberals love Trump right now. They won't say it out loud, but they love him.
Sure.
He's been the best thing for the Liberal Party, and they were looking at complete annihilation. Trump has fucked Canada in a way that doesn't help him any. It's just, and it's like, why? This was totally predictable. You didn't have to do it. All he had to do was wait like 6 months and do nothing. It's the dumbest thing.
Calling him Governor Trudeau, I'm not gonna lie, is funny. But everything else, I agree with you. And also, if it's any consolation, we also do not want Canada.
No, we don't want it.
No one wants Canada. We love you guys just the way you are.
well,
And Greenland is not going to happen.
No.
That's obviously not going to happen.
No, unfortunately not.
So-
But Panama, we could take. I think we should take Panama back. I have no idea how we lost Panama. Freaking, this is everything wrong with that son of a gun. I want Panama back. We built the Panama Canal. For those who don't know, we built that. That was ours. That was our investment.
Yeah.
And the Panamanian government, they're not really doing much with it. They're not taking control of it. So China has.
But you gave it back to them. It's like don't get me wrong. I'm American.
Well, we gave it back
way.
with conditions.
But
I think.
you
There
give,
were
you give it,
conditions.
yeah. But you give it back, and now it's saying and all this. We should take this place over. Take this place. I understand it, but I'm just not
Carter
comfortable
gave
with
it to them.
I'm just not comfortable with it.
Carter gave it to them, Nate.
Yeah, and I agree with you
Don't get
100%. It should be
uncomfortable.
ours. We should have never gave it. That was a stupid decision to give away the Panama Canal. But
Well,
I
they've
just
already
think if there's an
China
easy
out
win,
of there,
that's the
so
one.
that's good.
yeah,
I mean,
that's good. They got China out of there.
Yeah.
So it had the desired effect, at least. And Greenland, whatever happened, there's a lot more talks and a lot more partnerships that look like strategic locations and things that are going to be opening up for us. So there's still progress there. We may not own it, but
we should. Who's going to stop us? We send our military. Here's the thing: we didn't give it back. We gave it to them. We gave it to them.
I know. I
We
know
built
about
it. So I don't see the risk in just sending our military down and saying, "Look, we're doing our job and just maintaining security." China does it all the time.
Because shots start getting fired. People, I don't want to send anybody's kids to try to take over some canal and have it just. I'm anti-war. I'm not. Let's send the military down and start.
I'm with Nate. I'm with Nate on this. I don't like all this.
That's horrible. Yeah.
I don't. Why are we talking about all this?
Because war will come to us, you guys. It's not a question of if, it's when. And so you can either take the defensive route, which is what your position is saying, well, if it comes to us, then we'll defend ourselves. Okay, but then to what extent? You're sitting here saying, okay, well, Taiwan, that would put us at a loss. That would be a vulnerability. We have agreements with Taiwan. So then we're defending, there's a collective defense action. So we'll step in, right?
The U.S. invades Panama. Panama blows the canal and destroys it.
Invades Panama. We send our military to, again, assert security and control over the
That's an invasion.
That's an invasion.
Can we address
I didn't break into my neighbor's house. I just brought my shotgun to exert control over his television.
I think we're being trolled here by the blonde and the right.
But the thing is that the Panama Canal, based on its structure, how it works, can be blown in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
With a charge. And so all they do is they throw an explosive on it. The canal is gone, and the U.S. has.
Then what's their next move?
Yeah.
Well, their next move is, I guess the U.S. doesn't have any reason to hang out here.
You're right, and Ian, and they have no income or anything else, and they destroy their entire country. That would be.
But the thing is the U.S. I don't understand why people don't seem to see that. Other countries also have nationalism. Other countries also have a desire for independence. Just want to say, if China and Russia today said, we're taking Alaska, would the U.S. be like, well, we don't want a war with China and Russia, so no? Or would it be like bombers in the air? It'd be bombers in the air, right? The U.S.
send bombers, and we'd say, go for it. And listen, every country is entitled to take that route, but there are serious negotiations that need to be had, right? If tariffs are what's going to do it, it may be he may say offensive things, but if the moves are tariffs to try and get something else that another government doesn't want to give, then there are de-escalation tactics. These are carrots and sticks, and you play the carrot as much as you possibly can. The problem is America's been playing the carrot game to our own detriment, to the point where we've basically run out of sweets to give. We have no more incentives. Our only incentive is the stick. And so there's a balance. And I think we need
if you're concerned about a world war starting to invade other countries because we want your resources.
Dani is trolling. I just love to see the chat and you guys get all flustered. I'm sorry. I don't.
All right, then I won't take you seriously anymore.
One time. That's okay. You don't have to.
On Panama, I do want to say that there is a clause in that contract, though, for the security, and you can yank on that clause to say you can't have it to China or whatever. And that it looks like the result has already happened. China got kicked off of it. They're not able to run it anymore. I don't think that's unfair. But, and forcing the contract. You bunch of lawyers here. I would think you would say, yeah, there's a contract that says you have it as long as this is fulfilled. If they're not fulfilling it, then you yank on the contract through tariffs or whatever else. That's not improper.
I'd have to see that the agreement to really make, because
I've looked at it, and you're right, Eric. And the thing is that because China's already backed off, and because the Panamanian government has already assured us that they're going to step in, then that is the remedy in the agreement that we had. So, there's no need to go and enforce security measures in Panama. That was a joke. But is there need to, actually move forward in letting people know that we are very serious and that we have the capabilities, if needed, to enact policy and to enforce our policies overseas and our agreements overseas? Yes,
But hold on, who doesn't know that though? Like everyone knows we have the biggest things on the planet, right? The biggest cojones. It's not about if we can do it. It's do we have the will to do it? That's why we lost Vietnam, for instance. We could have totally destroyed the whole country, but we just didn't have the American people didn't have the will to continue the war. To
I
continue
wish
to
I
fund the
could
war
say
and all
that
that
that's
stuff.
true, Nate.
And,
But
I'm thinking
after
the
our
same thing here. It's like there's no doubt that America, any war we get into, we can kick butt. But it's like,
we can do it, but we can't do it forever. As long as people live there, and as long as people are resisting, we can keep bombing and shooting and go on and on and on and on. But guess what? Eventually, we're going to get tired and give up. Even our country, England was kicking our ass. They ran out of money. France is a pain in the ass, so they just said, "Okay, fine, just give it to them." That's the foundation of our country. I think it's unrealistic to feel like we can just go sit there as long as the population is saying we don't want them here. Eventually, we got to quit.
Afghanistan. That's Afghanistan. That's the 10-year Afghanistan war.
Vietnam, Afghanistan, all of these, unless we can co-opt them like we did with Japan. Japan worked because we kept the emperor in charge and we co-opted the guy and said, okay, look, you're in charge, but you're going to fix your crap. And they're more of a partner now. So that worked. We don't have to be, we do.
They
still
also,
have
though, they also bowed to us. That's a huge difference. So with Japan, they gave up. They surrendered.
The emperor told them to give up.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
If we had removed him, I don't know.
Yeah, but
no, I
just to be
agree with
clear,
you.
that was
I
part
agree
of
with you. I think that's the proper method if we're talking methods.
That was a part of the agreement after World War II. Even though we say it's non-conditional surrender, there was one condition that the emperor stay and do not be deposed. So
right.
All right. Well, it's been a great lively discussion this week, everybody. Thank you so much. I want to hear what you have coming up, Nate.
New York. We're going back to New York, where the lieutenant governor and the governor are in a all-out war. So the governor has kicked them out of his office, removed all of his office, fired all of his staff, took all of his electronics, everything, and has said that she's taken it all and said that she wants nothing to do with them and tried to fire him. But unfortunately, he's an elected official, just like she is. So he said, I'm not going anywhere. So essentially, he's getting paid $220,000 a year to do absolutely nothing. He loves it.
What was he doing before? Do lieutenant governors do anything?
Yeah, the lieutenant governor. It's like he's the president of the Senate, so he still has that thing. But she's removed.
He gets to sit at home now.
She's totally destroyed everything from this guy. So that's one thing. We're also talking about the $800 million payday loan that Chicago just took out, where they have to pay back $2 billion. They're going to have to pay back $2 billion. Yeah, so Chicago, just so everybody understands, Chicago did the $400 million. They paid for the illegal migrants. They paid $400 billion for the migrants. But since Trump and his team came in and said no more federal money for migrants, it's like, well, where are we going to get this money? The roads were in destruction, so they had to take. So their rating. So if you guys have a credit score, Chicago went down to a 500 credit score, something like that. But it was a B rating. So they just now had to take out a $830 million payday loan, which is going to cost them $2 billion to pay back over 30 years. And that's just so they can fix their roads and stuff because they actually ran out of money. So those are the stories that we're taking right now. Just the local.
That's who they vote in. Anyways, they vote this in. I mean, I'm sorry, my sympathy is not.
Hey, Nate.
Deep.
Is part of the issue with New York, is that part of the reason why Hochul didn't remove Adams? She's got too many problems to worry about with her lieutenant governor?
Yes. Well,
okay.
Well, she's not removing Adams because it was a issue of black, you're going to remove the black guy and, this type of thing. So, and the black and the black community essentially said, you're done if you remove him. So she's being held hostage, unfortunately, with that. And then with the and then
also
on the other
Cuomo's going to win the primary and be governor in no time. So it's kind of a mayor in no time. So it's silly for her to expend the political capital to kick him out. He's going to be gone in just a few months anyway.
Yeah, and let's not forget her lieutenant governor is kind of pro-Trump because he came from a district where it was 90% white, and he kept saying the woke crap is nonsense. We need to take care of everybody to stop this woke stuff. So that he's got to go, ASAP.
All right, Danny, what do you have coming up?
Well, now that I've thoroughly pissed off everybody and they're all going to go unsubscribe, please go subscribe. But, and just so you guys know, these theories that I'm throwing out there and what Trump is pursuing is not just an American theory. These are international theories that have existed in perpetuity. This is international realism 101. And so go and read on it, see if you like it. If you don't buy it, that's okay. You can be an international liberalist, and that does not mean the same thing as liberal. So go and do your research. Go and explore these different theories of international politics, because it is fascinating. And we do talk about it sometimes on our show, much to the dismay of some people. Anyway, we are covering Karen Reed still. And we are also covering these executive orders as they come out. You know, it's like every week, I wish I could say this is what we're doing, but we just have so much going on. It is intense. And I'm just really excited to see what else comes up. We also have the poisoning case here in Utah. The mom who wrote a book about her husband who passed away and how to live on even without one parent being there. Who also may have poisoned her husband. We're going to be talking about that case a lot this week as we gear up for trial. And then Lori Vallow's back in court in April. So we have some hearings and some motions to review down in Arizona. Now, this is the death of her second or third husband, that she basically set up this self-defense shooting rouge. And he was the first death leading to the murders of her children and her new husband's former wife, now deceased wife. So it's a very interesting case, all interesting cases. Come check out my channel. We'll have a lot going on daily over at my place, Dani Ahn Direct.
All right. Thank you very much. Steve, are you online more now, or you coming back?
I'm online less, but I am online occasionally. So I don't really want to promote anything, but I will say that Lucy Underdown just pulled 676 pounds as a female deadlifter. And Thor Bjornson's just about to go for the 501 kilogram elephant bar deadlift record in about 10 minutes. So I'm rooting for Thor, and congratulations to Lucy Underdown, strong woman extraordinaire. And, there you go. And I don't, just because I'm on this panel doesn't mean I agree with anything that's said by any of my neighbors.
That's the ultimate disclaimer. We all have our own opinions independent of one another.
One would hope, or it'd be very boring. All right. Sean had a legal fire to put out. He didn't just run away. So that leaves you, Ian. What do you have coming up, man?
There's going to be more Corey Richins. I'm looking to do some of the Koberger and also the and I'm forgetting his name now. The Luigi Mangione case. I'm covering some Karen Reed tonight. I also anticipate having a video coming out soon about flamethrower law in Canada. Right now, I keep checking my phone because I'm anticipating the courier is showing up any minute now. They gave me a window of like 10:30 to 1:30 for delivery of a flamethrower. So,
I want a flamethrower.
I've got a referral code if you want a flamethrower.
Are you going to videotape using it? Are you going to post it?
I'm absolutely going to videotape using the flamethrower and also discussing the law around flamethrowers. But yes, flamethrower is
so
any minute now. I'm just sitting here tapping.
Flamethrowers are legal in Canada, but just about every gun, it seems, is not. How does that work?
I will explain because it's complicated.
And they're illegal in international war, right? That's against the
the Geneva Suggestions.
Right?
Geneva
Okay, I'm just making sure.
like that.
Still can't use flamethrowers. Cool.
That's not entirely true because you can use flamethrowers for all sorts of things. You just can't use them specifically in an anti-personnel role, but you can use them for destruction of property. You can use them for, it's the same thing as like white phosphorus, which is like, you can use this as a smoke agent, but it also happens to burn the hell out of any people who might be in it. So,
nasty.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So anyway, but yeah, it's largely an agricultural tool, but so anyway, that I'm like, I can't wait to do that. That'll be fun.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. And folks, if you do like this, there's a subscribe button down below. It's free. I promise. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. And it does help out. You'll get notifications. And we do this panel most Fridays. Try to do it every Friday, but occasionally things happen. But we do try to do this. And I hope to see you soon.